Good morning and welcome to episode 84 of the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. I'm Richard Woods and today I'm sitting in a van.
Oof. Van life, Richard. Van life.
Van life. I'm one of those influencers now. I'm sitting in a van in a driveway in Oakuni. I'm on a bit of a boys' weekend, but there's so much news around that I figured we kind of had to go ahead with the wrap. How are you doing, Graham? Have you got a van there?
Well, I do, but clearly I'm either worse off or better off for the fact that I'm actually in my office rather than to worry about in a van potentially doing broadcasts in the snow about how I survived the night in the Cascades or all those videos you see. The Japanese in particular love them, don't they? Videos about survival in a K-van overnight in snow in a car park outside
So
of
no,
7-Eleven.
I'm sleeping in a bedroom with a electric blanket and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
This is a fabulous Ford Transit Custom Tornio. Bit of a farewell of this. It's about to be replaced, brought to me by the great people of Ford New Zealand and Tom Clancy, their PR guy. G'day, Tom. So a great way to travel. I do like my electrics, but we had a number of blokes, and great way to do that as well. Though, for all the hassles people give me about electric vehicles, this thing, when I jumped into it this morning, it keeps telling me that in 400 kilometers, it will no longer start because of a shortage of AdBlue. So I've got to go and find some AdBlue because, yeah.
Okay. Meanwhile, I drove, and all the Ford people online here, I happily drove my yellow Mustang 5-litre petrol, with that petrol-powered vehicle to work this morning, quite happily. And my biggest issue is that I drive down the road to get coffee and petrol, or just coffee. So there you are. But I should point out,
more often than not, coffee and petrol.
Yeah, usually in both quantities. I should point out, I've just come out of a week with the new Marquee, with the Marquee Premium, no less, and the GT, and I have really, really enjoyed it. And for all the Mustang people out there who say, it's full of Mustang, which includes me, I know. I was going to say, just very quietly, as a performance SUV that is powered by electricity, damn, it was good.
I've been back in that car now, and I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find the ride a bit jarring for everyday use for rural dwellers such as myself. Maybe it's better around the city. I got to spend some more time in the city in it, but
yep.
Smidge jarring.
Every passenger I've taken in the vehicle has made the same comment, and I've been doing some rural runs in it too, down to Glenrock back in bits and pieces, and they've all said the same thing. It is quite harsh.
Keep in mind, this is the sports version, so
it's
the high performance version, etc., etc. Yeah. Anyway, right, let's move on to the news. There is a lot to go through, so we're going to kind of speed run this. As much as we love Mr. Crawford, we couldn't do this episode with him today because it would take a while, and also he has some family stuff on, sadly. Our best wishes to him. Amos is off in Australia doing the business, as Amos does. So good on Amos. Obviously, he in recent weeks has launched Accelerate DMS. So if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend you go and do that. That's a pretty cool piece of software. Work from there. Right, so let's start with news. Somewhat a little bit out of order, I guess. I'm going to bring up a story which is more current and live than anything else, and that is that submissions for the light electric ruck vehicles amendment bill is currently live. Now, I'm not going to go too far into the story. Obviously, this week the government kind of dropped a very last-minute timed submission period on this. I think you had like 2 days to submit a submission, and then they've got 1 day to hear them, and it's going to be a very busy day, I gather. Lots of people making submissions on that. I watched the first hour of it, and I actually feel like the panel might be listening and hearing a little bit about this and just noting some of the inequities in the system that's being put through. We've discussed this before. I'm in the very much camp that EVs should pay ruck. I don't even necessarily have an issue with the level. I just believe that it should be equitable. I think they're seeing some of the issues around that equity issue in that. It'd be interesting to see. And we'll see what they come out with. But knowing politics, the submission, the select committee in a situation like this will mean nothing. So who knows? You can jump online and watch it now. I believe it's running away. Should we see if we can see what this one has to listen to for a second? Hang on. I don't know.
Can you
Can
get
you
audio on
hear
that? Got no audio on this. No, but we've got a nice view
it?
of people
Yeah,
speaking.
there never is. But anyway, I highly recommend if you're in that space that you jump onto that link now. It's on a story on AutoTalk, and look at the ruck consultation discussion. Very much the feeling there is everyone says ruck is good, but the settings they've suggested are just a little bit off. The big setting I think is off is $14.60 or whatever it is to print a bloody ruck label,
Mm-hmm.
and that
But
is
but but that's not just a recent issue. That's been ongoing for as long as the system's been in place.
and I think potentially it was livable when it was largely commercial stuff, predominantly commercial stuff in that space. But now, as you start to open it up to a lot more families, a lot more other people in that families that plug-in hybrids, that kind of stuff, it goes back to being yet another equity issue because again, pushes forward to people who can't afford to buy as much at one time are penalised over people who can buy a lot at one time. So. Just yet another equity issue that needs to be sorted out in the system. It's bad politics, I think, this in that it's being rushed in a way that means they're going to end up with bad policy. And we'll get to this a little bit further on. A lot of the justification for that has come from the minister saying this is a temporary issue. They literally AutoTalk quote him as saying that, and that we're going to have ruck for all coming soon. But as we'll go to in some other stories today, they've now laid out the excise rises through 2027 and beyond. And I have a quote that we'll be putting out soon from the minister indicating that the ruck system is in the coming years. It's not necessarily the short-term gap of an issue that they first indicated. And I feel that's a bit disingenuous. I know the minister's rushed on a lot of this stuff, but I don't feel that's necessarily an excuse for bad policy, essentially. You got a take on that, Graham?
Not necessarily in agreement with everything that you said there, to be fair. Well, no, yes, I do. I understand it. And I think the equity issue over the fee for purchasing of your road user has always been an issue. Although I struggle a wee bit with the idea about struggling people when it comes to purchasing road user for their EV or their PHEV, because that tends to be, the demographic tends to be people that can perhaps afford a little bit more than the people that are buying and driving $3,000 or $4,000 cars. We're not at that point yet, although interestingly, it might be the bottom shelf Leaf. But I will say that's from politics. It's been very clear from the minute this policy was announced that the optics for government are probably more important, and that is that the general population has supported the move they've made. They don't differentiate between plug-ins, for example, and EVs.
Mm.
They just see that they're finally paying their fair share of fuel excise tax, and it's a good bloody job. It's about bloody time.
Yeah.
And so from a political perspective, purely politics being played out here, there's no problem to see here. The issue as it is, and the noise is coming from the side of the industry that is most affected by it, which is the electric and PHEV communities, which are by and large still by far the minority of both vehicles on the road, potential vehicles on the road, and voters.
I think the danger for this, though, is that there's enough discontent Leaf owners and Outlander PHEV owners and low range European plug-in hybrids, and I think one of the first submitters who really had a bit of an impact this morning was a woman who drives a 2013 Prius plug-in hybrid. There's enough of a group there now that this could be picked up by someone and run with, and that's the danger that I think the minister faces with this. There's enough bad stories out there from this that it could get some traction. Whether you agree with it or not, I think the reality is it's always, and we see so many examples of it. Rushed regulation is usually bad regulation, and when it's not, and particularly in this case where this has been done as much on a what should happen basis as an ideological basis. They are rushing. They're rushing this through to meet an ideological need, as opposed to taking the time to work on it, to get it right, to actually come up with a system that's fit for purpose for the longer term. Now, the problem being is the minister basically said as his way to get past this is that this isn't a longer term solution. We are going to fix this. But now, weeks later, is saying we're not going to fix this, essentially. And reading between the lines, and I'm pushing the minister for further context before we run stuff, I don't see this occurring within the current term of government. And that's a problem. That's dumping bad regulation and running. So, yeah, we'll see.
It's a Radio New Zealand story in the making, isn't it? It's how I see it. And I suspect government probably views it as well that way. And I know that's politicising it, but I think that's probably the truth of it, is they've put it on the burner and said, you know what, there's nothing to lose out of this by pushing it forward. 2%.
There is one thing to lose, and one thing we need to remember is that the majority of electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles in New Zealand, I believe, are owned by businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where you could see something come from. Anyway, let's move on. The stats, we'll run through this quickly because it's been a week. They weren't great in February. It was the worst month for light passenger vehicles in 11 years. Again, it wasn't a wonderful month for commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles were up by where are we at, like 14% or something like that. But again, historically not high. So we're still not seeing this commercial boom. Electric vehicles are in the toilet. Passenger vehicles are in the toilet, probably based on the fact that electric vehicles are in the toilet. It's a bit miserable out there. And if we jump across to in the new car side, if we jump across to the used import side, I'm hearing out there it's not wonderful, but the statistics are telling me otherwise, Graham. Up 13.7%.
Year on year for February, correct?
Yeah. That's right.
I know, because February last year was pretty horrific, actually, as I recall, in terms of a month. So,
yeah.
Okay, so to unpack it very, very quickly, because I know we're time short today. Everybody in the used trade that I hear from is singing off the same song sheet. It is terrible out there. It's just it's a wasteland, and it's very different from the used vehicle community because they deal with a much different sector of the economy. And I suspect, in some respects, that's part of the economy being affected the worst right now, with small business owners, private vehicle owners updating, as it were, to a brand new car. Some of the fleets, they are deferring their purchasing big time. And we're talking to some guys in the community of new that are really, really suffering. I mean, really badly suffering, not just a couple of units down. We're hearing some pretty nasty stories out there. For the used sector, I think, and it's one of those deep dive into the numbers and see where the vehicles are selling. The people that I talk to, for example, everyone's talking doom and gloom. But I know there are people selling cars out there as well. But I think the model has shifted a wee bit. The pricing brackets have definitely shifted without any doubt. You go and look and see what's in the buy list of any of the major Japanese exporters right now, and it's all cheap stuff. And so the market is rapidly having to pivot from being, for example, in used imports, from being a sort of a $12,000 to $22,000 marketplace. Suddenly, $10,000 is the goal. $10,000 cars or under. And it's changed really quickly, the demand from the public. A lot of dealerships.
Hasn't $10,000 always been the goal? I mean, hasn't that always been the sweet spot? And perhaps we just drifted back to it.
No, we like to talk about that, but the reality is we've always said that the marketplace is probably, with the exception of the bottom end of the market, okay, just dismiss that for a second. The driver of the marketplace has been in that, I'm going to say 12 to 17 as a number, just sort of arbitrary numbers, because that's what gets you an updated later model lower K car than the one you're currently driving. Okay, $10,000 gets tricky in the import market, and it has for years. It's been hard to update your vehicle to a significant level without spending more than $10,000. So we're seeing a pivot, a really, really sharp pivot. The other sector that's really interesting, and that is in the heavy commercial sector, which we don't talk about a lot on the show, but I've got some people in that particular sector right now as well, and they are, and there the numbers are really hard to read because most of your new heavy sales are dictated by sales made a year or even 2 years behind. I've got a mate of mine who's about to take delivery of a truck he ordered 2 years ago. In fact, over 2 years ago, he ordered it. But I'm also hearing stories of mass returns back to dealers of some of their clients just simply, no, I'm not taking it. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm not taking it. But a significant retrench back in that marketplace too. Now, how much of that is reality, I don't know. But that's what I'm hearing. all this points to, we're talking about an economic slowdown in New Zealand. Man, in the car sector, it's already arrived. And we are living it every day, and it is. I could say what I really feel, and I won't. So I would say the F word, but it is really, really tough out there. It's brutal.
Not good. Not
Oh,
good.
it's not.
No. How long will it last? That's the question. How long will it last? What can we? Yeah.
So consumer sentiment's the bigger driver, right? That's what in our sector, consumer sentiment. If people feel good about their jobs, about their house, their rent, their family, and bits and pieces, they're more likely to go and update their motor vehicle when they need to. If they're not feeling good, they won't. They'll defer those purchases. Right now, they're not feeling good about anything. All we hear are stories about cost of groceries, cost of rent, cost of mortgage, all that sort of stuff. Even with the hold by the Reserve Bank on the OCR at the moment, that's not translating or filtering down to everyone's everyday living costs. And so from the used sector, it'll take a little while longer, I think. I'm going to pitch around May or June before I think we see a marginal shift. New is a different dynamic altogether, and I'm not the right person to talk about what drives the new vehicle marketplace. But I suspect from a corporate perspective, it's as much the same around being cautious at the moment, just retrenching and being cautious about the unnecessary aspect of your spend.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's interesting times. We'll see how long it lasts. I mean, I think, yeah, who knows? What do we need? Do we need money conditions loosening? Do we need what? I don't know if even that's going to work again. There's just so much debt sitting out there at the moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, there is. It does. So it needs strong signal from government that it's over, and then we can start moving forward again. And it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you sit on. That's not what it's about. It's about the government, the Reserve Bank, about the machinery of the bureaucracy saying, you know what, we've kind of got this under control. We're moving forward. You can start to relax a wee bit because we've got the debt situation managed. We've got this side of things managed. We can go forward as a nation. And people hear that, and it starts to churn in their mind that maybe they can afford to do things after all. Right now, they're not getting those news stories.
We're about to see a heck of a lot of drop over onto new mortgage rates at the moment. I know 2 people have spoken to in the last 24 hours who are seeing significant, $200 to $300 increase in their mortgage payments over the next month or two. They're going to start seeing that. And that's going to be broad across the market. And that surely has to have an impact on inflation. So we'll see. That sucks a lot of money out of the economy. That's the payment. $150 a week. That's the payment on finance for a $12,000-$13,000 import car.
Yep.
Yeah. So, right. Now, one that came in last night that is interesting, bit of a one that would ultimately have some impact on the used import trade, and yet again comes down to the downsides to rushed regulation. So, review ahead for emissions rule 4-month registration requirements. So, I'll simplify this one down. They snuck through the emissions rule just before the election last year. I think David Parker signed it the week of the election. And it turns out there was a fish hook there in that under the emissions rule, cars had to be registered within 4 months of being border checked, which basically meant that if you take into account maybe a car sitting on the wharf and then being on a ship for a month, and then some delays in compliance, you basically had to register it within about not that long after it arrived in the country and arrived on your yard. And as we all know, Graham, cars don't always necessarily sell the second they land in your yard. This one was going to be an expensive one if it had held on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it took the trade by surprise too. I think it's one of those classic, no one looked after under the lid. No one really looked to see what the devil in the detail. But it's not even selling the vehicle. In some cases, border check to a vehicle being complied with an MR2A. For whatever reason, the vehicle's held up. Maybe it needs an engineer's report for repairs. Maybe there's a mechanical issue, you can't get parts, whatever. Sometimes it can take 4 months between a border check to a vehicle receiving an MR2A for whatever reason. What do you do then? To me, it was just either a deliberate ploy, if you like, of sort of giving the industry a bit of a slap on the way out as the he must have known he was departing minister signed things into place, or it was just really, really badly thought through policy.
Yeah. Well, look, I think when they say review, I think they mean it's going. So I think you can watch the space. Good work by Veer. I think it's one of those cases where Veer's done some really good work in that area. And yeah, good to see that being relooked at. Now, the rest of this it's in a bit of a less direct order. I pulled some stories forward, but this stuff's more in a just when it popped up order. Northland MG dealership opening in Whangarei. So MG New Zealand has announced details of opening a new dealership, taking the total number of sales location around the country to 22. Located in Whangarei, Northland MG. It's part of the Tristram Group, and we'll get onto that further along. So yeah, another MG dealer up there. Nissan is returning to its legendary Newmarket site. That's a good-looking dealership. That's a classic dealership. I love that building, and I hope
Yeah.
that the land's owned by the Dilworth Trust. I'm not entirely sure of the buildings. I've heard it might be Giltrip, it might be Dilworth. Not sure what the situation is now. So Andrew Sims, of course, recently picked up Nissan from Giltrips, and they've taken over the old site. So that's going to be shared between Nissan and BYD. It's a huge site. It's got 2 separate service centres, one upstairs and one downstairs. So they have such a landmark site, and as troubled as the Nissan
Screams.
brand has been,
It screams. Yeah.
it kind of is nice to see it returning to a prominent site. It kind of been tucked away up the road for a while.
So I was going to say that there's a classic 80s build dealership. It screams 80s. I can just about sort of smell the Brill Cream and the Brute 33 from here. However, as I say, it also signals that Newmarket isn't dead. We've talked about this before, that the Newmarket site was kind of, I thought, was sort of losing its way. It was like the old Green Lane Boulevard of cars that is no longer, or certainly diminished in time. And Newmarket appeared to be losing a lot of its flagship sites. And here we are. It's really good to see confidence to bring a site like that back into the fold for the new car industry.
I have a suggestion, and I suspect if the apartment market wasn't down right now, that this might not have happened.
Mm.
And those classic buildings would have been lost to us all. So great to see that from Andrew Sims. Matthew Wales says it's because you've got all the main electric brands now, with the exception of Tesla, within a strip, and he says this is actually really good for the market. People can go cross shop. There's literally one side of them's MG, one side of them's Polestar. So and it's not just premium brands going on that strip now. It's general brands, and
yep.
So yeah, pretty cool.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Exactly. Now, Inchcape New Zealand has welcomed 8 KGM and Fairwilling SsangYong. So the SsangYong brand is gone as of later this month. There's an event on that they're going to do that with. So that's the new KGM Torres. KG Mobility, I think is technically the name, but KGM is what they're trading as. They've got some new vehicles coming. They've slapped their badge on some old vehicles. Petrol and battery electric models available. It'd be interesting to see. Do you think KGM is a better brand than SsangYong, Graham?
Well, I inadvertently called it KGB yesterday. I was looking at the story, but I said it twice without realizing it. But I know, right? And that's the problem with acronyms. So my local's going to be KGM LDV or LDV KGM. See, this is how quickly it falls out. So, however, a couple of points in that. First of all, I think SsangYong's had a really troubled run in New Zealand lately when it comes to product and brand perception of bits and pieces. And I dare say it's just been crowded out a wee bit by the onrush of the Chinese marketplace that has just overtaken a brand that never really had strong loyalty. SsangYong's always sold itself on price, particularly in the commercial sector, and some of their SUVs and bits and pieces too. There's nothing wrong with the vehicles. They've just been sold in a price-sensitive marketplace, and the Chinese product has overtaken that. The second question is what happens to the existing SsangYong product, not only in the marketplace, but all the new product lying around right now that has SsangYong badges firmly on the front. What happens to it? Because I believe there's a lot of it.
The badge, I've had a look at the rebranding. The badge itself doesn't change. It's still the same logo. And the dealerships stay basically the same. It's just they replace SsangYong with KGM on the wall. So yeah, I think they'll be selling that for a while. I think they've got some special in place. I think Inchcape overall, with both SsangYong and LDV, seems to have a really big issue with the amount of stock on the ground that they've got to deal with. So that's going to be an ongoing thing for them to work through. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they see that happens with this launch. We're sending someone to the launch of KGM in a week or so, so we'll see what comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this takes on to the Northland story before. Tristram has acquired Mark Crane Motor Group. That's been confirmed by Mark Hayward. It says exciting times ahead for the newly acquired dealership in Whangarei. It says all existing staff will be staying on, and Brad Antonovic will remain the dealer principal of the business, which will be known as Tristram Northland. He says they are taking on and continuing with all the brands that Mark Cromie had in place. We will be participating in getting close to the community, local community, and looking to providing vehicle servicing further north for custom convenience. Now, Mark Cromie is probably best known, and still to this day, I think Mark Cromie is known for the Holden brand.
Mm.
And yeah, I wonder whether Mark's obviously advanced in advanced years, but still he's still working. My mother-in-law has a Holden, and she goes in there for service, and she's a couple of times had Mark literally come out and deal with her himself. He is one of those guys that was really active around the dealership, even if he wasn't necessarily dealer principal anymore. So yeah,
he's automotive royalty. I mean, think back to my entry into the trade back in the late 80s. He's certainly, when it comes to Holden, I'd almost call him the remaining Holden ambassador for the country, because he did specialize not just in Holden but in hot Holdens, and had some really neat stuff that he was playing around with. It was powerboating exploits and bits and pieces too. So I've got to say, look, the guy's a legend. Well done, Mark. I think you deserved your retirement. If it is retirement, I think you deserved every minute of it. And the Northland motor vehicle community and the Holden community is probably a little bit poorer with you stepping back from the business. But there you go. So well done. And on the counter side to that, has there been no Volkswagen presence north of effectively Wairau at all? Is this the first foray north of the North Shore?
I don't know if they've taken Volkswagen in there. To be honest, that was a picture of Tristram.
I thought they were. Just to be fair, I thought it included Volkswagen. But an interesting foray north for some of the more premium brands that Tristram's have represented, which is a box tick for confidence in Northland.
So Volkswagen Skoda that was already there under the Mark Cromie group.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So Mark Cromie had at this point under the Mark Cromie brand, Audi, Nissan, Isuzu, Holden, Skoda, Volkswagen, GMSV, Renault, Hyundai.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, got everything. Okay, so forget everything I said then.
Yeah. So they've got it all up there. Whangarei is a real go forward city. We love, people know I live in Northland. We spend a bit of time in Whangarei. It's been a relatively resilient city in regards to the downturn. A lot of construction there, a lot of engineering projects, a lot of work related to the port, and a lot of road construction up there. So it's not been doing too badly. There's a lot of cashed up tradies running around Whangarei. So you probably want new Amarocks. Yeah, we will see. Now, a not automotive one necessarily, but Toyota New Zealand collaborating in hydrogen aviation trial. Toyota New Zealand is taking part in a project using hydrogen to fuel Air New Zealand's electric tugs and service vehicles. The trial is being conducted at Wellington Airport over the next few weeks using a hydrogen fuel cell provided by Toyota New Zealand. The fuel cell uses hydrogen to generate electricity with supply coordinated by Heringa Energy. So interesting project there. Toyota New Zealand are really trying to get into this hydrogen fuel cell as a generator kind of space, as opposed to hydrogen vehicles. Not they're ruling that either. Now, there's been a lot of discussion around this week in regards to Toyota New Zealand and some comments in regards to electric vehicles. I've got a full story coming out next week from the launch of the BZ4X where those comments were made. I suspect that some of the stuff that has been put out to the market was a smidge out of context in regards to the residual of electric vehicles. And we'll put that a little more right, I suspect. Though the numbers aren't looking good, I'll admit that. So yeah, more to come on that. If you want to see my video on the BZ4X, that's up on the EVs and Beyond YouTube channel or on LinkedIn. I got called a paid shill for Toyota, Graham.
Did you really? I'll take that as a badge of honor, Richard.
Well, so my answer to that was I posted up that comment on LinkedIn saying I can confirm I'm not a paid shill for Toyota. However, if anyone would like to pay me for content, you can get in touch with us at deborah@automediagroup.co.nz because, heck, pay me. For that stuff, not for
Well, I'm
news.
going to
Not for
say
news.
I'll back you with that one because you and I did the test in the B4ZX down to Palmerston North and back about a month or so ago. So technically speaking, I could be a paid shill as well because I have waxed lyrical about that vehicle, about how good it actually was on that drive. We talked about the range, obviously, but sorry, people, sorry, I drive a Ford. Sorry.
Yes, we know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, arrivals, just some quick numbers. More than 15,000 passenger car arrivals in February. So 19,000 units landing. Is that combined? 15,230 passenger cars and 7,739 new and 7,491 used. Those are low numbers.
Well, if you
How are you
compare
gonna
that to the vehicles coming out the front door.
How are you gonna sell your 9,000-ish passenger cars a month in either segment if there's only 7,500 arriving in each segment?
Well, as I
Interesting.
say, balance the numbers out. How many cars are sold new in February, Richard? I can't imagine there's too many new vehicle distributors right now thinking, you know what, we could really use some more stock to put on our holding yards.
2,762 commercial units, which is half of a reasonable month's volume, which means that there's some stock on the ground. These numbers indicate
Yeah.
there's some stock on the ground.
Yes.
Wowzers. Yes.
Yes.
Fuel tax and regional increase proposed in government's draft transport plan. So they're going to up the petrol tax. They're going to up registration costs, and they want these money to build them roads. They're going to build them RONs, and I like RONs, so I'm moderately happy with that. In as much as I'm happy with paying RUC, I want RONs. Build me a RON and toll it. I want to be able to drive all the way home on a 4-lane motorway.
I was going to say, from a political optics point of view, I looked at the list of RONs, it was 15, I think, and I thought you'd have unless you were a die-hard rail fan or you cycle around the country with hairy legs, you'd have to admit that the RONs list is a sensible one. And forget the nice way of calling it an acronym like a RONs or whatever, and it's politically feel good. They're all projects that needed doing. I don't think there's a person in the room that wouldn't say, you know what, that's kind of time that particular project was done. And for you, Richard, living in Northland, I have to say you've got your fair share of those that are on that list of things to do that'll have an influence as well. And the poor people of Ashburton right about now must be thinking, thank God for that, finally, a bloody bridge. It's stuff that needed to get done. Package it up how you will politically, it's just stuff that had to get done.
Yeah. Now, dealers, you have responsibilities.
Who would have known?
8 dealerships have been spoken to by Whakatahi NZ Transport Agency, NZTA, about some 300 cars listed for sale that have received the clean car discount. So says the Imported Motor Vehicle Industry Association VIA, which adds recent media stories have talked about dealers selling EVs after registering that car to themselves to claim the CCD before it ended on December 31. VIA reminds members about dealer duties and says, although the clean car discount ended on December 31, 2023, it's still being managed until the end of June this year. This includes the need to hold on to electric vehicles for 3 months if you've received the clean car discount for the vehicle yourself. It says VIA, if you're a dealer, make sure to check your listings and mark any cars that need to be held onto. I think the key thing there is proving you've done the action. Sure, you can have the car sitting there, but as long as in your system you tick the box that it's not to be sold, you're probably okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say, what's the cutoff coming up now? Is it the 1st of April? I guess in theory it's the 1st of April.
Yeah,
so
would be
3 weeks to go, lads.
Yep. And then a whole pile of cheap electrified product goes on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Two Cheap Cars downgrades profit guidance. Two Cheap Cars Group is revising its financial year 24 net profit after tax guidance from 6.8 million to between 6.3 and 6.5 due to exchange rate variance. Who cares? It would be more worried if you said it was being tanked because of the slow economy. But they're saying it's in good shape. They're just playing around with the offshore margins.
I'm going to say, well, clearly you care because you put the story up. So.
Mr. Nigel Moffat put the story up. Yeah. Now, here's one that's interesting. The Kia Tasman Ute has been they've begun promoting it in Australia. They did a massive ad. Highly recommend you jump on the Kia Australia YouTube channel and watch this. Basically, every notable Australian sports person in the last 20 years is in a pub, and they talk about what it should be named, and like the Kia Tugger and all sorts of stuff like that. We all know it's the Tasman. They hinted it in this ad a couple of times. First arrivals are expected late this year. Be a force-fed turbo diesel. There will be an electrified version, supposedly. They're looking at 20,000 units a year in Australia, which would mean that they're probably a good 4,000 or 5,000 units in New Zealand, maybe. No, a couple of thousand. Who knows? But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes from this. New Zealand has said nothing at this stage other than watch this space. Of course, the bloody Utes coming here. Right.
Gonna say, why the hell wouldn't it? Although, once again, not a traditional Ute brand, and I think most of the people out there that sell Utes would understand that the badge on the key fob as he tosses it across the bar is important, and it'll be interesting to see how that strikes with the die-hard black singlet wearing bushman who says, "Oh yeah, mate, chuck a couple of cold ones in the back of the Kia, would you?"
Yeah, but I actually think the Kia brand is strong enough in that space.
Oh, yeah, it's a good brand. It's a strong brand.
History with this use, a lot of history with fleets. The Volkswagen brand's done incredibly well with Utes, and it's interesting. I think Kia will do the same. I'd be worried if I was Nissan and the likes, to be honest, because Kia does seem to be very price savvy, and this will be starting off with a new platform. I think they're going to end up with a Ute that potentially is going to be very advanced in regards to technology and so forth. It's a proper Ute, proper super chassis Ute. Be interesting to see if Hyundai joins as well, and we end up with a Hyundai Ute. Though that could cause some fun for Hyundai New Zealand, seeing as they distribute Isuzu Utes from the same plant, from the same team as well. Now, Moana Blue partners with AA on combined odometer stickers. So we've had this thing kind of floating around for a while now that if you want to be a AA approved dealer, you have to have your AA. Was it AA certified?
AA verified, is it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
AA preferred dealer status. You have to have
preferred,
your vehicle auto checked and complied through the AA system. Now you have an additional option. So the Moana Blue handled vehicles handled through their ATL system now qualify under that scheme. You get a combined AA and ATL sticker on the windscreen. So that, I think, just makes it a little bit easier for dealers to live within their AA preferred system if they want to. Jonathan Sergel, AA's Chief Mobility Officer, welcomed Moana Blue and ATL to the AA odometer inspection program. Says ATL has been conducting inspections in Japan for over 20 years and established a strong reputation in the industry. Their collaboration ensures AA members and consumers have confidence in the odometer reading of imported vehicles carrying the shared AA ATL logo. Now, Graham, you understand the world of odometer inspections and this kind of stuff more than I do. Is this more than Moana Blue paying the AA a fee to join the program?
I don't know. Like, we've been through so many different permutations of the inspectorate, what it means, who's actually performing them, who's contract performing them. Honestly, Richard, I no longer know. There are so many different variations in the same thing going forward. And for anyone watching this in the Beltway of Wellington right now, physical odometer examinations are a thing of the past. That sort of stopped when the ARC landed up on the ground about 20 years ago and moved away from analog odometers. It's an electronic process for a start. And that in turn has opened itself up to ability for different operators to access the data that provides verification, bearing in mind that it's now verification rather than an inspection. The wording has changed, if you notice. It's no longer the word inspection, it's verification. So I don't know. I couldn't honestly say to you who's
and to be clear, I'm not suggesting anything wrong with Moana / ATL systems. I've worked with those guys for years. I've been to they are a great company, and not in any way wanting to cast aspersions. I wonder whether there's more to this than just a marketing exercise. But at least it means that we can. I was quite critical of the A preferred system when it launched. I felt that it was too restrictive in what was allowed, essentially requiring dealers to use specific forms of a government-mandated process in order to fit within a system. Opening it up, it's a positive. It's positive. It means that's less commercially constrained for those people that do want to stick within that system.
I'd echo that. And they're look, Moana Blue, ATL, good, strong brands in the marketplace that I think have earned their right to be at that seat at the table without doubt.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that it's become a very, it's almost like a linear process across there about who's involved in which aspect of inspection, verification, what it actually means now. It's just it's a given. From the AA's perspective, it's always been commercial. Let's be honest, we know that it's a commercial move.
Yeah. Right, let's speed run through the last few. Now, the National Tyre Recycling Scheme has been launched. So you got to pay your monies for your tyres now. Dealer survey label results, please, NZTA. The NZTA survey showed 2/3 of vehicles for sale by registered dealers have a current safety rating on label on display. The survey by the NZTA found that 66.7% of vehicles dealerships displayed a current vehicle safety rating label, which is currently voluntary to display. NCA thanks those who participated in the survey. That's good. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Well, we'll be part of that because they visited us 3 times.
Nice.
Three times, and on the second and third visit, they had no idea that there'd been a predecessor visiting beforehand. So I don't know who was doing the run sheet for where they went, but we obviously got a tick 3 times in a row, right? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they only visited 3 dealers and visited each one 3 times, got no results. I don't know.
Now, Heartland Bank is now a Tesla preferred finance provider. So good on you, Heartland Bank. That's a big client to pick up, I'd imagine. I hear there's an awful lot of Teslas sitting around Mount Wellington, so many of them will need nice loans to go on them. The Collision Repair Association has joined forces with the Motor Trade Association. The Motor Trade Association and the Collision Repair Association have announced that the 2 organisations will form a partnership effective March 1. The MTA Chief Executive Lee Marshall says the collaboration between the 2 organisations sees the CRA become a chapter of MTA, gives a stronger voice and unified front to the collision repair sector. So yes, MTA. So the CRA is now part of the MTA essentially, which is good. I mean, less duplication of services in that space. I'm sure they're working in the same direction anyway. Workshops and panel beaters, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and that is the main news. But I did want to just pull up a story that. Let me just. Talk amongst yourself for a second.
Breaking news. Richard in the transit.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, that's the beauty of this show. It's, I suppose, a little bit fluid. Bearing in mind, for those of you who don't watch this on a regular basis, I have no idea what Richard's going to provide for us to talk about. So I have no ability to do any research or homework on the subjects that we cover.
Now, okay, so I've got it ready. I've got it ready.
Go.
Now, dodgy dealers of New Zealand. You can sigh. You can breathe a sigh of relief. You can put your throwing ladders away. You no longer need to carry a baseball bat in the back of the office. Fair go's been axed.
Really?
Yep.
That's news. Yep. Okay, I didn't see that.
So that's live and breaking. Now, through the years, and I know Gordon Harcourt is on my LinkedIn, so maybe he's seen this before. He might see this. They obviously have had plenty of tussles with some dodgy dealers. Sometimes they've treated the dealers more than fairly. Sometimes been a little bit harsh on the dealer. More often than not, the dealer probably did deserve to be there. But I think that's an interesting chapter in New Zealand history, the end of Fair Go, and how it relates to consumer affairs, and the interesting one. I worked once or twice with them on some stuff, or at least advised or provided context to a few things. You appeared on them, I think, at one point.
Yep. I've had two rounds of Fair Go. I'm sure I said both of them good. The first one was we actually had a letter sent into Fair Go by a customer stating that they'd heard about all these bad stories about motor vehicle traders. Just wanted to point out there were and I'm ringing my own bell here, that there were good ones out there as well, how we handled the situation with a vehicle transaction gone bad, and they wanted to commend us, and we've got a mention there. And the second one was debate at the time, I believe, with John Duffy, I think it was, over the pending Fair Trading Act and consumer legislation around dealers selling vehicles that had to be covered under the CGA.
Mm.
Can I just say, love fair go. It's one of those things that's been on the TV sets of the nation for many, many years, but I just feel it had lost its way in recent years and it become more sensationalist than it had drilling down to the real issues. Yeah, if you turned up on fair go, there's a fairly good chance there was a good reason as to why, but I think it had in recent times perhaps over-egged the...
Yeah, it switched more to human interest than actual consumer journalism. Is my view on it. Gordon Harcourt, I think, was kind of when he departed, that was kind of the end of their really aggressive, proper consumer journalism. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's an institution that's obviously a few dealers in the room here right now going, oh, that.
Yep. No. Normal, 99.9% of dealers, no issue. They're going to be sad to see their nice Tuesday entertainment gone.
Yes.
0.01% that we should
the ones that don't watch this show anyway. Let's be honest. Yeah, exactly. If you're in that boat, you're not watching us today anyway. So, good riddance, all that sort of stuff. But yes, it is actually a sad day for that end of TV. But I also think it had run its course.
Yes. Its course of like 40 years or something, 40, 50 years. So, yeah. Right. Anyway, thank you, everyone. We tried to do a quicker one, and it's 50 minutes, so that's not too bad for us. That is the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap for today. I'm going to go off and have some breakfast, and we'll catch you next week. I think we might have back to normal next week, maybe after a bit of stoppy-starty.
Get the full quid in. That's right. All right.
Yep. Okay.
Catch you all next Friday.
Worries.